G'day and welcome to another video. In today's lesson we're going to make this really cool tassel. You can make them in 3 colours. I will be using 3 colours for the video so it's easier for you to see. Beads are optional, so if you've got some beads laying around we can use them in this project. If not, you don't need them. For this project we are going to need a pair of scissors. We're going to need a needle with an eye big enough for our thread, which is my blue cotton there on the left. This is a sharp needle. You can see me there poking it. You're not going to need a tape measure. I don't even know why I put this here, but I needed the tape measure to measure the beads, but you won't need one, so just ignore that. I've got a selection of beads that I'm going to add, but like I said, these are optional. They're all different sizes. And you've just got to make sure that your needle will go through your beads when your thread is on there. You can also use yarn instead of the thread, but the thread is a lot sturdier because it's cotton rather than yarn. We are also going to need a big bead to go in the middle of our tassel. You can see here that this is a lot bigger than the other ones that I had. This is just a cheap acrylic. That whole packet of beads cost me $2. This is the thread that I'm using. It is a 4-ply Australian or a fingering weight yarn. It's just a cotton. It's used for tea towels or doilies or something like that. It recommends a 3.25. I will be using Red Heart Super Saver for my tassel. This colour is turquoise. Usually you pull the ball from the middle, but for this project I'm going to be pulling it from the outside of the ball. If you pull it from the inside, sometimes the yarn is all crinkly. You can see I made this tassel as a practice when I was learning how to do it, and this was from the inside of the ball and it went all crinkly. You're also going to need something to wrap your yarn around to make your tassels. I'm just using an index book, as you can see here. And I'm going to pull my yarn from the outside of the ball. I just want to apologise that you can see my sleeves. I didn't realise that you could see my sleeves until quite a way into the video. Usually I don't have to worry too much about it, but I'm filming at a different angle for this tassel. So unwrap some yarn, and then we are going to get our yarn and we're going to wrap it around. For the project, in the video, I'm going to be using 3 colours. I have got turquoise, bright pink and bright purple. So place your yarn on the thing you're going to wrap around and wrap it around. I have wrapped it so I've got 20 pieces of yarn, but I did find that this was a little bit too bulky, so I would recommend wrapping it 15 times. If you're going to use 3 colours, that is, you're going to wrap it 15 times. If you're going to use one colour, you are going to wrap it 15 times 3. So what's that? 45 times. We're going to snip our yarn at the same end that we started our yarn. And then we're just going to cut it off our thing that we wrapped around. You can see here I've missed one, but don't worry, I'll fix it up. So make sure all your tassel, all your pieces of yarn, sorry, are all lined up at the end, and just make it as good as you can. You can always trim it at later on when we've finished our tassel. You can see I've got some long bits, so I'm just fixing those up. Any of those pieces there, we can just trim at the end of our project to make it look all pretty. So like I said, I've got 20 pieces of yarn there, but I would recommend doing it with 15 if this is the first time you're making this type of tassel. So I've got my 3 colours. Just going to pop those aside. Make sure they're all laying in the same direction and try and smooth them out if you can. But don't worry about them little bits, we can trim them off at the end. So this can be a little bit fiddly the very first time that you do it, but don't worry, you do get the hang of it. This is actually only the 3rd one that I've actually made, and I felt like I was getting the hang of it. So you're going to place your yarn like this and then fold over the first one, which is the blue one, like so. grab your third amount of yarn, and this is where the 3 colours help because they all are separated by their colours and it is easier to see what you're doing. So you're going to put the tails of your second colour in there and we're going to fold it over. You can see me just organising the yarn tails so it's a little bit neater. You've got to fold it over so it's even, so I do fiddle around a little bit here. But just make sure that your pink ends there are meeting each other on the end. There we go, that's better. We're going to put our pink tails through the loop of the purple ones. And just be careful so that you don't pull out any of the other strands of yarn, so you make sure you don't pull out those blue or the purple strands of yarn. We're now going to get our big bead. We're going to cut off some thread. This stuff is really hard to break, so it's great to use for this project. But if you've only got some yarn, that's going to work great as well. Just don't pull too hard, otherwise it may snap the yarn. I'm going to thread your bead on, and we're just going to tie a couple of knots just to secure the bead to the thread that we have. Just make sure that's lovely and secure, and then it won't pull off that thread. We're going to find the center, and this is when the 3 colors helps. You can push them all aside to where they're supposed to go. And we're going to put our bead through the middle. We're going to flip it over and just pull the bead through so it pulls the thread through like that. And just leave that loose, that's fine like that. We're going to grab our ends of our yarn and we are going to pull to cinch up the knot which is going to create in the middle as we pull our threads. But just give one a pull and then spin it around, do the other ones, and gradually it's all going to come together in the middle. And you can see my bead still hanging out and the thread goes through the middle, and this is going to get trapped. So I'm just gradually pulling. And you can see here it's all coming together in the center and creating that really cool knot. You may need to pull individual threads just to get them all to sit flat. The bit where the little triangle bit in the middle, the knotted part, in the bit in the middle anyway, you want to make sure all those threads are smooth. You don't want any sticking out, so just flip it over, check out the other side, and you may need to grab individual strands. You can see the pink one there's a little bit loose, so I'm just grabbing individual strands, trying to get them a lot tighter. And then just work your way around. The more you can make it tight and make sure all those threads are nice and snug, the better your tassel is going to look. You can see that pink is a little bit loose as well, so I'm doing that pink one again. I have sped this up a little bit for the video so you're not just sitting there watching me. But I wanted to keep it going so you could see exactly what I do to make the actual tassel. So once you get in the middle, you can give it a good old pull. So my thread and my bead is still going through the middle, you can see that. What we're going to do is pull our thread. This could be a piece of yarn like I said, but we're going to pull our thread and it's going to go snug up against the middle of the tassel. This is going to be completely hidden, so it wouldn't matter what colour that bead was or what it was made of. This is acrylic, and the beads that I use on the top of the tassel are actually glass. So it really doesn't matter what this bead's made of. I was actually looking for some timber beads because they're lightweight, but all I could find was some acrylic. Again, I'm just giving the yarn a bit of a pull. And the more time you spend doing this, the better it's going to look when it's finished, and it will give you a nice tight knot at the top of your tassel. And now what we want to do is just make sure all of our threads are all just laying in the same direction. And this bit of thread keeps getting in the way, so don't worry if that happens, you can just always pull it back out. And we're going to push our strands of yarn down around the bead. You can see how I'm just putting it around the bead, and the bead will get covered up inside in the middle of all the yarn. We are also going to need a piece of yarn in any colour that you like, but if you're going to match it together, then same colour. I'm just choosing the purple. You're going to need about 24 inches of yarn. I didn't measure this, I just guessed. So about 24 inches of yarn, and then we're going to make sure our yarn is nice and snug around our bead. If you can get this really snug, then it will work really well. We're going to grab our yarn and we're just going to make like a little sort of fishhook shape like that. We're going to pinch our yarn and lay it with the loop going to the bottom of the tassel. We're going to lay that onto our tassel. You can see the loop there, and then we're going to wrap it around. Now I swap hands here because I thought that maybe you couldn't see it, but you don't need to swap hands. Okay, so you've got the little strand sticking up at the top, and you'll have your loop facing the bottom of your tassel. When you're wrapping it around, make it nice and snug. And if you can, lay the strands of yarn next to each other so that it creates a wide band, if that's what you want anyway, you don't have to. Once you've got it all wrapped around, we're going to put the end of our yarn that we've just wrapped around through that loop that we created at the beginning. So pull that through the loop. I was just pulling that snug so it's snug around the tassel. And the yarn that's sticking at the top, we're going to pull that, and it's going to pull through that yarn end. Do it gently, because if you pull too hard you might accidentally snap your yarn. We want to tie our yarn in a knot, and we're going to hide this underneath the yarn that we wrapped around our tassel. And we're going to grab our yarn needle and just thread our yarn tails that we have just used to wrap around the tassel, and we're just going to hide them back into the middle of the tassel. I don't even hear that screeching noise in the background, but they're actually cockatoo birds outside flying around. Then we just want to thread the other needle, thread the other piece of yarn onto our needle and just hide that again, and we're just poking it right, as you can see there, if I can get it in the right light, right next to where we've wrapped it around our tassel. As you can see, my yarn is a little bit long, but we can trim that off with a pair of scissors after. Make sure all your strands are going in the same direction. Grab your scissors and just trim the ends so that they're even. And I'm just pulling down on the threads just to make sure it's nice and snug around the bead. These yarns, the threads could have shifted as you were wrapping your yarn around the middle of the tassel there. But just give them a quick spruce up just to make them look really good. I just love how the top colours are coming out on this. It looks fantastic. So now we've got our thread, or you may have a piece of yarn attached to the top of our tassel, and we're going to grab our sewing needle. I'm just going to snip that end off, it was a bit frayed. Grab your sewing needle and we're going to attach our beads. You can do these in any order that you like. Maybe lay them on the table first to see which order you like your beads in. And we're going to thread our needle, and then we're just going to thread our beads on in the order that we would like them to be. I just had to swap needles there because I realised that I couldn't get the needle through the bead. I had to swap to a smaller one. Once you have all your beads threaded onto your yarn at the top, it is ready to add to a project. So I really hope you enjoyed that video tutorial. It's a great tassel to add to any project. I'm sure you will come up with many options, different colours, combinations with your beads, and add them to many projects. I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram. I will add my Instagram name on the screen here so you can have a look. Please share your creations on Facebook. Thanks for watching my video. Until next time, happy crochet.